day to everyone and a Happy New Year. In this video, we, the Group 4, will talk about Chapter 5, which is the democracy and democratic institutions that was divided into 3 lessons. But before we dive into this topic, allow me to introduce the members of this group. Let's begin the exciting part that you've all been waiting for by tackling the lesson 1 first. So lesson 1 is all about examining the foundations of democracy. That is focusing on core ideas, historical roots, and fundamental principles that underpin democratic systems. So kanina yung lesson kay dapat na siya mga foundations or basic underlying elements nga mo shape and support sa democracy. So kumbaga dapat na yung mga foundations ang democracy para mo function. So let's move on to the core content of this lesson. Links everyday social interactions, organizational decision-making to democratic principles. So for further explanation about that, ang democratic ideas daw kay dili ra siya pwede para sa government, but pwede sa mga organized groups of any size. So when for example, a basketball team kay need nilang leader, so what they need to do is by talking through what they need in a leader and then voting. So these small-scale practices reflects the same logic that shapes our national democracy, that everyone affected by a decision should have a say. Next is the key processes, which are the discussion, deliberation, and voting. Plus, the majority wins is the essence of democratic consensus building. So for further explanation, let's break it down. So ang discussion kay siya ang nag-ensure nga tanang perspective are heard. Ang deliberation kay siya ang nag-help nga ma-understand sa tanang tao ang different viewpoints of people. Ang votings kay siya ang nag-provide nato o kanang fair way to settle on a decision when the agreement isn't universal. And the majority wins is the rule that balances efficiency with respect for all collective will. Well, it doesn't mean that every individual gets what they want, but it ensures the outcome is what people believe is the best for the group. So now let's move on to the scales of national level. Citizens vote for local, national leaders with every vote carrying equal weight. So for simple explanation, a vote cast from the both former and CEO has the same impact on the election's result. So, mapobre man o madato, kung unsa man ang imong giboto, maora dyan na siya. So, walang lapis, walang kulang. Next is enforcing majority rule equals democracy in action. I believe each one of us knows about the rule majority always win. So if there is an election and candidate A has more votings than candidate B, candidate A wins. And that shows democracy in action by letting people choose who to vote. So now let's move on to where the word democracy was originated. The term democracy originates from the Greek language, which the word comes from demos, which means the common people, and kratos, which means rule. From the origins of this word, we can say that democracy means the rule of common people. So I've been talking about democracy here a lot, but you don't have any idea what is the definition of democracy. So democracy was defined as a system of government where power is vested in the people, who exercise it directly or through elected representatives. So one of the example of the democracy is our nation. We belong in a democratic country by having the right to vote and having the right of speech, or I mean freedom of speech. And now let's proceed to Robert Dahl's 5 criteria that should be in place for the democratic process to commence. First is the people or the demos. All adults participate in elections except those with proven mental deficiencies. This is to ensure authority comes from an individuals that was in the right mind. The second is control of agenda. The citizens must have the exclusive opportunity to decide how matters are to be placed on the agenda for discussion and deliberation, and ultimately, voting. So this means that the citizens will decide what issues are to be discussed on and voted on. So this will prevent the leaders and powerful groups to limit the choices that will only serve their only interest. Third is enlightened understandings. The citizen ought to have adequate information to make a choice on what would best serve community and society. So this means that citizens must receive an unbiased information so that they will make the best choice that would benefit the community. Fourth is effective participation. The citizen can be rallied and mobilized to make their preference realized through direct participation in the social and political life of the society. So one of the example is yung mga rally na nangyari this year about sa issues about sa ato ang former president and new president. So yung mga tao ay sumali sa rally so that they can express themselves about the issue so that the people can hear their preferences, kung ano yung masasabi nila tungkol sa issue, yung mga rights na pinaglaban nila. So, yeah, that is the one of the examples sa effective participation, yung mga hinanakit sa tao, pinapalabas nila. Ay, charot. Last but not the least is the equality in the voting process. Each citizen must be able to render a vote that will be counted as equal in weight so that choice expressed by the any other citizen. So this means nga kung unsa man kabugaton akong pagboto o kung sa kabugaton ang imong pagboto is parehara na siya weight, madato man o mapobre. And that's it. So now let's move on to Diamond's 4 Elements of Democracy 2001. So first, there must be a system for choosing and replacing the government through free and fair elections. So this means nga ang elections kay walay fraud, manipulation, or coercion. And also, ang mga voters should feel safe kung kinsa ilahang gi-desire nga i-vote nga leader. And also, there must be a peaceful process. Second is active participation of the people as citizen and civic life. So I believe this is important. Why? Because if there is a lot of people participating in any civic life, the government's vision and the community's vision will be finally aligned. Why? Because there is a communication between the two, diba? And also, mas hapsay ang pagda sa government sa mga tao if they will going to listen the people or they will, make action on what people really wants and needs. And that's it. Third is the protection and promotion of human rights of all the citizens. I believe I don't have to explain this furthermore because you as a Filipino, as a human being, you know what is your rights and what is the protection you need from the governments that you deserve. Last but not the least is the rule of law, which should apply equally to all its citizens. So for example, na governor nangawat og 1 million pesos, then ikaw pamilyado, pobre nga tao nangawat ra og usa ka dilata sa mall. Pero nganong mas bugat ang imong punishment kaysa sa governor? Like, where is the justice here? Diba? Dili siya equally granted sa rule of law. So, dapat unta, kung unsa ka bugat, ang punishment sa pobre, ingana po nakabugat ang punishment sa dato. Dapat equal jud siya. But, question, you live in a democratic country. Do you think that our government is doing their job to make this democratic country good? Diba? Blank. Charot. Kamu ni answer sa inyong mind. I am just asking you the question so that you might question yourself as well if you're living a good country. If you're living in a fair country. If you're living in the most comfortable country. And yeah, that's it. I hope that you have learned something from me, and I am going to give you the next reporter.
Good day, everyone. Today, we'll discuss the advantages of democracy and the historical foundation of how democracy developed over time. So, as mentioned earlier, democracy is a system of government where powers come from people. So, ang democracy daw kay usa ka sistema sa gobyerno kung asa ang powers gagikan sa mga katawhan. So, citizens can choose their leader, express their opinions freely, and participate in government decisions. So, let's proceed to the advantages of democracy. According to Robert Dahl, democracy has many advantages compared to non-democratic system. So this includes, first, prevention of tyranny. Democracy prevents cruel and abusive leaders from staying in power. Leaders are elected by the people and serves only for a limited time. And also, if the leader abuses his power, can be punished by the law. For example, if a barangay captain is not doing his job well, the people will choose a new leader in the next election. Dili pwede magpabilin sa pwesto ang usa ka leader kung dili siya tarong mo serbisyo. Second is protection of rights and freedom. Democracy protects basic rights such as freedom of speech, religion, and expression. People can share opinions about government without fear. Ethical standards like avoiding slander must still be followed. For example, you can share your opinion about school rules without punished. The third one is self-determination. Democracy allows people to choose the life they want. You can choose your career, religion, and personal goals. The government also provides scholars, job training, livelihood programs to help citizens improve their lives. So for example, you can choose what course do you want to take in college. Dili ang gobyerno ang mo choose sa imong kaugmaon kundi ikaw. So the fourth one is the moral autonomy. Citizens can decide what is right or wrong and express their beliefs freely without fear or punishment. Like for example, you can stand what you believe is right, like saying no to cheating. Nakay freedom nga makapili sa what is right and wrong sa sayop o sa eksakto. So the fifth one is human development. Democracy focuses on improving people's lives. The government creates programs to provide education, health services, housing, and financial support to the families who needs help. So for example, public school gives free education, books, and school supplies. So meaning, gitabangan sa gobyerno ang mga estudyante para makaeskwela o makatuon. So the sixth one is restriction of inequality. So democracy is work to reduce economic and political inequalities by creating a program to help those in needs. So for example, the 4-Piece program helps poor people by buying foods and send children to school. So meaning, kitabangan ang mga pobre aron dili sila magpabilin sa kalisod. So the seventh one is peacekeeping. Democracy favors peaceful conflict resolution through dialogues and negotiation rather than conflict. So for example, instead of fighting, barangay official helps neighbor talk and fix problem. So dapat sa ang problema masulbad sa storya dili kay sa gubot. So the last one is sustained economic growth. So democracy encourages the citizens to start businesses and allow foreign investment to create a job and strengthens the economy. So for example, ang gagmay nga sari-sari store o mga online seller kay maka-earn og money ug dili ra na mao kay maka-provide pa jud sila job sa uban nga tawo. So let's proceed to the historical foundation of democracy. So democracy did not start suddenly. It slowly developed through history, beginning in ancient Greece and then in Rome and later in modern countries like America and France. So the first form of democracy started in ancient Athens through the leadership of Cleisthenes. So he created three important institutions. First is ecclesia or assembly, where people meet and vote on laws. This is similar to voting during elections today. So the second one is bull or council. This group prepares the laws before they are voted on. They help organize and plan the government decisions. And the last one is dicastria or the courts. This will decide if a person is guilty or not. Only men were allowed to vote, but this became the start of the modern democracy. So let's proceed to the Roman Republic. The Romans removed their kings and formed a republic. The Roman society had two main groups, the patricians and the plebeians. The patricians are the rich and the powerful families, while the plebeians are the common people. So men aged 15 years old and above were considered as citizens with rights and duties. But women were recognized as citizens but were not allowed to vote or to hold a government positions. The Roman idea of citizenships, laws, and responsibilities influenced the democratic systems we use today. So let's proceed to the modern democracy, the American Revolution, to 1775 to 1783. The American colonists fought for independence from Great Britain. They believed that all people are born equal and everyone has the right to life, liberty, and happiness. So this was written in the Declaration of Independence 1776. So let's proceed to the French Revolution 1789. The French peoples fought against the unfair rule of King Louis. They demanded the equality, justice, and the freedom. So these revolutions helped spread democracy to many countries. So in conclusion, democracy started in Athens, developed in Rome, and grew stronger through Americans and French Revolution. So today, democracy allows people to enjoy freedom, equality, peace, opportunities, and economic growth. It gives citizens a voice and protect their rights. And that's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I'm Trisha Sanchez and now I'm gonna tackle the two types of democracy, the direct democracy and the representative democracies. Ako muna ako discuss ang direct democracy. Direct democracy is a system where citizens directly vote on laws and decisions without representatives. So ang direct democracy daw is isa sa system where ang mga citizen is magdiretso sila vote sa laws. Gitawag ni is like ang mga tao no is maka vote sila og mga laws, policy ug unsay lang ganahan like ilabay post sa bang law or ilang ilang dungagan. Mao na siya ang direct democracy. And it works best in small communities. So ang direct democracy daw is may tabo siya sa mga small communities, like sa mga gagmay nga mga lugar. Kay if nga na mo is gamay lang population, tas like dili kalas og oras if mag sabot sila sa silang ganahan daw. Ancient Athens practiced this form of democracy where citizens met in public assemblies to debate and vote. So, if ang direct democracy is mga tao ra jud ang makakuan sa mga laws o policy. So, magtipon-tipon na silang tanan, tas magsabot na sila, ana. So, if na usa ka grupo nga lang ipaganahan sila magdugang og laws or magpausag og vote or mga policies, ilan ang barugan nilang mga ganahan may tabo. So dili mo jud tanan ang tao ganahan sa ilang gibarugan. So ara na magsugod sila, mag-debate sila. So mag-debate sila tas mag-vote din na sila. Tas if kinsa makadaog atong vote, kasi makadaog ato sa asa nga panig is motoy ipasaka, tas ilatong pasa sa kinatasan, tas maaprubahan dayon to nga law. And today, direct democracy is a rare because modern societies are large, complex, and citizens have limited time to participate regularly in governance. So karon daw nga time ang kana daw direct democracy is nihit na kay may tabo tungod sa kanang kadako sa lugar, tas sa mga tausad nga naray gamay nga time about sa government, kay uban busy sa siguro kay silang mga ibang buhat. Pero naran siya example na siya usa na lugar sa nasa lugar nga hangtod karon nagamit gyud mo sa direct democracy. Usa na ang Switzerland, siguro magamit gyapon nila nga rule kay gamay ra mo Switzerland, tas siguro ang mga tao dili kay busy dito. And now we discuss ang representative democracy. Representative democracy allows citizens to participate in government by electing representatives who make laws on their behalf. So ang representative democracy is opposite siya sa direct. Kay ang direct is, di ba kung ano itong direct kanang ang mga tao mismo maghimo silang law. Kani ang mga tao is mag-vote sila ug mga representatives na mabuhat sa ilang law. Kay although representatives rarely pull citizens directly, they act on the belief that they understand the will of the majority. So ang main diri nga part is ang kanado lang mga representative is nihit na sila nga like makig-connect sa mga citizens, like mga nga na kay mulihok ka sila largo sa ilang mga gituhuan nga feel nila nga kanang ikakaayo sa tanan bitaw. So ang lang mga representative is kanang like mo himo na sila ilang own law nga kabalo sila nga maka-benefit ang mga tao nga if their actions benefit they may be re-elected. So ari is if ang mga tao gani is kanang like naka-benefit sa ilang gihimo nga law, tapos ganahan sila nga nindot ang ilang performance, tapos ang mga taong bayan is maganahan nila, dapat na sila chance nga ang katunang gipili nga representative is ma-vote siya, like ma-elect siya og balik ba. So mo na siya dira nga part Brad. So example nga country sa representative democracy is ang Philippines. Kay yung mahalata sa natuzad nga representative democracy ang Pilipinas, kay mag-vote ra bang tao og mga like president, congressman, mga governor na mo siya example sa representative democracy, Brad. So mo ni last part sa report. Democracy is a system of government based on rule by the people where citizens share equalities and participate in decision making mainly through voting. So ang democracy daw is isa sa system sa government nga ginabase sa mga tao ug sa mga katawhan ang katungod nila nga mopili ug sa mopili og mga representative like na pamagi sa mag-vote. So halata na mga tanan, mailhan namin natin sa inyong democracy, vote gina. Democracy is valued because it promotes equality, protects rights, follows the rule of law, and encourage citizens to participate in government. So democracy is kanang gi-promote ginugigyan siya nga law kay makakuha mo siya equality, tas mo follow gid ang mga tao sa like follow sa law, and maka-encourage sila sa mga tao nga participate sa government. Siyempre kay election kay kuan mi ng mga tao dagko mo ang kamang ana ang participate gid ng mga tao kuan gi dagko gi korta.
Good day everyone. Today I will discuss lesson 2, the defining features of democracy. I will explain first what is democracy. Democracy is a system of government where the people have the power. It means people are allowed to speak, join discussions, and vote for decisions that affect them. I will discuss each point one by one. First is participation of the people. In democracy, everyone has the right to join in decision making. Example kanang during sa national election, citizens vote for their leaders, such as president or senators. Everyone's choice help decide who will lead the country. Second, democracy allows decisions and debate. People might disagree but they talk peacefully. If no agreement is reached, they vote and follow the majority decisions. For example, kanang sa group work or sa group activities, kay if naay uban nga mo disagree kay di ba mag-vote man jud ta para maka-decide ta. Third is equality and respect. Everyone is treated equally and has the right to be heard, even if others disagree. For example, sa usa ka community activity, ang tanan pwede moatag sila mga ideas. Everyone is listened to and treated fairly. Next is democracy and government. In a country, people cannot decide everything directly, so they elect leaders to represent them. For example, in school, we vote for a class president to represent the class and make decisions for everyone. Next is human rights. Democracy protects human rights like freedom of speech and assembly. For example, people can express their opinions peacefully without fear. Lastly, democracy follows the rule of law. This means that the law is supreme and applies equally to everyone. No one is above the law, even government leaders and officials. For example, traffic rule apply to everyone. Sa Pilipinas, bisan ordinaryong mamayan ka or kanang opisyal sa gobyerno, kinahanglan gyapon ta mutuman sa traffic laws. Kung mula pa sila or kita, they can be arrested and punished according to the law. In conclusion, democracy is important because it gives people a voice, protects rights, and ensures fairness.
Hi everyone, today I will report on the key of principles of democracy, the role of law, human rights, and free and fair elections. The role of law means that everyone is equal before the law, and government power is limited by the Constitution. Leaders are accountable, and the separation of power ensures fairness and justice. Human rights are inherent and inalienable rights of all people. The state has the duty to respect, protect, and fulfill these rights to safeguard human dignity and democracy. Free and fair elections allow citizens to choose their leaders through secret and honest voting. Elections must be inclusive and transparent and accountable. In conclusion, these principles work together to protect freedom and strengthen democracy.
Good day, everyone. So today I will talk all about broad citizen engagement. Broad citizen engagement means active participation of citizens in a democracy. Meaning to say, citizens are free to speak, assemble, practice religion, criticize the government, and take part on public issues that affect their lives. Democracy works best when citizens are informed, involved, and expressive. Freedom of speech and assembly are essential to democratic life. Why? Because they allow citizens to express opinions freely, and they give feedback to the government. And citizens can also criticize public officials and participate in discussions and debates. Democracies are often noisy because many voices are allowed to be heard. And that is normal in a democratic countries. The people will allow to speak up for their own opinions which they are against for a specific or a particular issue. The role of an informed citizenry for a democracy to succeed is that citizens must understand government processes, be interested in public issues, and know how to express concerns properly. Because knowledgeable citizens can make democracy stronger. The access to information in a democracy, citizen participation depends on the access to information. The state should provide open and accurate data so that it cannot be mislead to others. And a speaker or the state must be responsible for their information so that people can make a good decisions and can make a better opinions. The state should also avoid strict censorship and encourage citizens to speak up. Information helps citizens to provide or to help form a better informed opinions. Democracy is the plurality of voices. It values many ideas and opinions in public actions. This leads to lobbying government officials, citizen movements, and peaceful debates and disagreements. Disagreement is acceptable as long as it claims the benefits to the majority. Next is civil protests and civil disobedience. Protests are a way to express serious grievances. Democracies should allow peaceful assemblies. On the other hand, civil disobedience is non-violent and moral violation of law to change unjust laws or policies. It is different from a criminal act because it is a collective political purpose. The freedom of speech is not absolute. It means it is limited. It cannot be used for slander, defamation, violence, and intimidation. The law and the courts must regulate abuses of free speech. In the freedom of religion, citizen has the right to choose or reject religion. They has the right to worship freely, and they has the right to participate or practice religious rituals, and also can share religious beliefs. Even though we have diverse religion or beliefs, we always put in our mind that we must respect each other's religion and each other's beliefs, and the state must protect this freedom of religion. The role of civil society includes organizations independent from the state, such as NGOs or non-government organizations, media, schools, churches, or people's organization. These groups allow citizens to discuss and act freely in public issues. Functions of civil society organizations have four major roles. First, promote citizen participation. It educates citizens about rights, duties, and democracy. Second is provide information. The state share public issues that can influence laws and policies. Third is represent people's interest. For example, is lobby government for reforms and enabling laws. And lastly, as a watchdog, it exposes abuses, corruptions, and praise a good governance. Civil society organizations can help make the government accountable and transparent using these four major roles. Democracy is built on human rights and freedom, fair free elections, rule of law, and broad citizen engagement. Without free speech, assembly, and participation, democracy cannot exist. Broad citizen engagement strengthens democracy by allowing citizens to freely express ideas, participate in public affairs, and hold the government accountable. Through freedom of speech, access to information, civil society organizations, and peaceful action, democracy becomes inclusive, responsive, and effective.
So good day everyone. So once again, I'm Chris Clement Erwin Solat. So in this video, we're gonna talk all about the lesson 3, the practice of democracy in the Philippines. So a democracy is often understood as a system where people choose their leaders and participate in governance. So in the Philippines, democracy is developed through a long and complex process shaped by colonial influence, dictatorship, revolution, and political transition. So as you can see here, it's said that democracy in the Philippines did not develop smoothly or continuously, as it was influenced by colonial rule, authoritarian leadership, people-powered movements, and democratic transition. So in this lesson, focuses on the practice of democracy after the 1986 EDSA People Power Revolution and explain why democratic challenges continued afterwards. So before we continue our lessons, let us know our learning objective first. So at the end of this lesson, you should able to explain how democracy was restored in the Philippines after the 1986 EDSA People Power Revolution. Describe the challenges faced by the Aquino administration during the democratic transition. Identify the effects of coup attempts, political alliances, and economic problems on democratic governance, and explain the concept of democratic defects and their historical roots, and finally analyze why the democracy in the Philippines remains an ongoing process rather than a completed achievements. EDSA People Power Revolution in 1986. So in 1986, the EDSA People Power Revolution ended the dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos through peaceful protests. As it said, millions of Filipinos gathered peacefully to oppose authoritarian rule, where people from different social classes participated, including workers, professional, religious groups, and ordinary citizens. As these events forced the Ferdinand Marcos to step down and ended more than 2 decades of his authoritarian rule. Limitations after EDSA. Although the dictatorship ended, many systems of power remained unchanged, as the removal of Marcos did not completely eliminate elite dominance and traditional political institutions. Democracy was restored in form, but deep social, economic, and political inequalities still remain. So meaning, nagay po ng mga issue, mga corruptions like we still have today. Corazon Aquino as a president. So after EDSA, Corazon Aquino became president of the Philippines. as President Aquino symbolized the return of democratic rule after years of dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos. Her presidency marked a transition period from authoritarian governance to civilian leadership. Role of Juan Ponce Enrile. So Aquino relied on key political and military allies, including Juan Ponce Enrile. So Juan Ponce Enrile played a role in withdrawing military support from Marcos. Because of this, he was appointed defense minister, and this reflects how political alliances continue to influence leadership after EDSA. Problems inherited from Marcos' rules. So, Aquino inherited serious problems caused by 21 years of Marcos' rules. As you can see here, here are the problems inherited from Marcos' regime. Massive foreign debt, weak Philippines peso, disenfranchised middle class, and weak democratic institution. So this condition made a democratic governance difficult even after restoration of civilian rule. Coup attempts. So in May 1986, Aquino faced the first several coup attempts. As if you don't know what coup attempts is, it is an illegal effort by military force to overthrow a constitutional elected government. So a coup attempt threatens democracy because they bypass legal and electoral processes. So repeated military unrest. So Aquino faced a total 7 coup attempts during her presidency, and that is repeated military unrest. As repeated military uprising weakened political stability and reduced public confidence in democratic institutions. This event shows that civilian control over military remained weak. So political capital. So political capital refers to public trust, legitimacy, and moral authority held by a political leader. In short, it is the trust and authority a leader holds. So Aquino initially had a strong support after EDSA, but repeated crises gradually weakened her authority, like those problems like weak control over military, those repeated coups, and the weak economic crisis. Marcos' legacy. So Marcos left behind a divided military and national debt of $28.5 billion. So these conditions made democratic consolidation difficult for the post-dictatorship government. So this is also the reason why Aquino faced the problem weak control over the military. Release of political detainees. So the Aquino governments released the political detainees including leaders of leftist movements. So in other words, Aquino released political detainees to promote reconciliation. So this policy aims to heal political divisions through dialogue rather than repression. Political opposition and debate. The supporters of the former Marcos regime opposed the release of political detainees. So in other words, some groups opposed the decisions. So they argue that reconciliation threatens order and weakens military discipline. Enrile's position. So Enrile's position is about justice against reconciliation. So Enrile's argued that releasing political prisoners should be also applied to military officers jailed for human rights and abuse under martial law. So in other words, Enrile argued that soldiers jailed for human rights abuses should be also released. So this debate revealed tension between accountability and political stability. Human rights under Marcos. So human rights abuses during Marcos rules complicated the democratic transitions. And here are the human rights abuses during martial law: illegal arrest, torture, and forced disappearance. Addressing these abuses became a major challenges in rebuilding democratic institutions. (1992) presidential elections. So the 1992 elections marked the return of democratic normalcy. So in 1992, the peaceful transfer of power through regular elections marked the formal restoration of democratic process in the Philippines. Democratic deficits. So scholars describe continuing weakness in Philippine democracy as democratic deficits. So democratic deficits refers to gap between democratic ideals and actual political practice, so including elite dominance and weak institutions. Historical roots of democratic deficits. So these deficits can be traced back to the American colonial period. Democratic weakness existed even before martial law. Many of these problems originated during the American colonial period and persisted over time. That's all everyone, so I hope you learned something from my lesson, and the continuation of my lesson we're gonna be talking about by Paul, Courtney, and Wilma. I hope you enjoyed my video. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Good day everyone, so my name is Paul Libot and I'm going to tackle about the practice of democracy in Philippines. After the Philippines gained independence in 1946, all adults were allowed to vote, which greatly increased the number of voters, especially from the lower and middle classes. However, while more people could vote, political power still remained mostly with the ruling elite, who strengthened their control over government and public affairs. The text explained that the Philippines faces democratic deficits, meaning problem in how democracy works. These include weak transparency and accountability in government, poor representation of citizens, lack of access to education and jobs, unfair treatment of minority and groups, environmental damage, and unequal access to basic needs like healthcare, food, and shelter. There are also problems in how local national governments work together. So na ako'y explain ato about sa gibasa kaniya. So bisan pa og yatagan ta og kanang bisan pa og yatagan ta og will nga mo vote, kay dili gyapon mawala ang problema sa ato ang nasod, kay naay daghang problema sama sa dili patas nga pagpamuno, kanang kakulang sa opportunity o kakulang sa maayong serbisyo sa gobyerno. So mga ana. So the passage explains the Philippines election have long been controlled by wealthy elites. Votes from ordinary people flow upward to powerful politicians, while money, favors, and benefits flow downwards to voters. This system started during the American colonial period, where economic elites became political elites, allowing them to dominate elections through vote buying, fraud, and heavy spending on media. Political parties, which should represent the people, often serve elite interests instead. Although political parties are supposed to represent citizens from policies, unite interests, and organize government, they remain weak in the Philippines due to how low public participation and strong patronage politics. To improve representation, the party list law was passed to allow marginalized groups to have seats in Congress, but elite dominance still persists. So explanation kay kana nagpasabot siya nga sa Pilipinas ang politika og eleksyon kay kasagaran kontrolado jud siya sa kanang mga dato or mga gamhanan niya, kanang at kita mga botante mobotar sa mga politiko kasagaran sa tuwa kay kanang bayaran ra samot na ilang i-target anak nga hatag kwarta kanang mga pobre, kay dali ra gid kaayo kuan sila, dali ra kay sila mailad labon na hatag kwarta. So kini nga sistema kay nagsugod pa siya sa panahon sa mga Amerikano, diin nga kanang ang mga dato na himong political nga mga leaders. Tungod ani dili kanunay patas ang election kay adunay vote buying or kanang pandaraya og daghang gasto sa kampanya nya. Ang mga political party unta mao ang mo representar sa tingog sa katawhan, maghimo og mga plano para sa gobyerno ug motabang sa pagdagan sa nasod apan ang Pilipinas ug kay kasagaran gigamit ra sila sa mga kanang mga elite para mapadayon ang ilang gahom. Bisan pa gipasa ang party list law aron matabangan ang mga pobre ug marginalized nga grupo nga makasulod sa Kongreso, padayon gihapon ang impluwensya sa mga elite diri sa tuwa. So, unsa din ang party list law? So, ang party list law kay usa ka balaod nga nagtabang sa mga grupo sa tawo sama sa kubos ug mga trabahante nga adunay tingog sa Kongreso. Pinaagi niini makapili sila og tawo nga mosulti sa ilang mga problema sa gobyerno. Kini nga balaod nagpasabot nga dili tanang kini nga balaod kay nagpasabot siya nga kanang tanang tawo kay paminawon dili lang gyud ang mga dato or naay mga gahom. So that's all everyone, and thank you for listening.
Justice and party list reform. We need major fixes in two areas: making our court fair and ensuring our political parties actually represent everyday people. Justice system fixes. The court need to work better, especially for the poor. So, what needs fixing? We must update old laws and create one big system for tracking crime information and clean up confusing police investigation rules. Our key goal is to legally help mediation available locally where people live. International help like the United States Agency International Development Program is pushing for faster and smarter court. Party list system issues. The party list system is supposed to help the marginalized, but it often fails. The problem is the powerful elites take the party list seat instead of the poor or the workers they claim to represent. The solution is to force the parties to represent the truly marginalized. We also need the rule that to stop political dynasties from controlling everything. So, politics must serve the vulnerable, not just the rich or the powerful.
First topic, Marites Daiglan Vito is a Filipino journalist and author known for her work on governance, corruption, and democracy in the Philippines. Explanation: Marites Daiglan Vito is a Filipino journalist, author, and academic widely recognized for her critical work on governance. Example: Marites Daiglan Vito argues that judicial reform in the Philippines should begin by ensuring the independence of judge. Next, education is a fundamental human right essential for developing a nation, human resources, and strengthening democracy. Explanation: this passage emphasizes that education is a basic human right that every citizen should have access to. Example: the Philippines government's K-12 program ensures that every child has access to 12 years of basic education. Next, picking mangoes from a neighbor's tree without permission, and a democratic approach that goal listen to both sides. B. A neighbor's dog defecating in your lawn or front yard. A democratic solution focus on discussion, mutual respect. C. A neighbor spreading malicious gossip. Democracy values freedom of speech. Second topic, synthesis and conclusion. The Malolos Constitution symbolized the Filipinos' early aspiration for freedom and self-governance after century. Explanation: the Malolos Constitution represent the Filipinos' early desire from freedom, independence, and self-rule after being colonized. An example of the challenge of democracy in the Philippines is during the martial law period under President Fernando Marcos. Third topic, chapter summary. Democracy is a system where power comes from the people and discussions are made by majority based on popular control. Explanation: democracy means that the people have the power to govern themselves, usually through the role of the majority. Example: an example of democracy in practice is a national election. The Philippines during election, Filipino citizens who are qualified to vote. Thank you.